everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
Today we're taking a look at Canopy Evergreen, which came out in 2024 and is a follow-up to Canopy, which came out in 2021.
Right.
Canopy was a two-player game from the same designer, Tim Eisner, and it was set in the Amazon rainforest, while Canopy Evergreen is set in the Pacific Northwest, and also is more than two players.
That's right. It goes 2 through 4, but both are card drafting games in which, what do you call that style of drafting? You get to look at a pile. If you don't like it, you put it back down, you add a card to it, go to the next pile until you choose one you like.
Why don't you show us?
All right. Here we have the game set up for 3 players, in which each player is going to have their own board. They're going to be tracking their own victory points over here, food, and then they randomize these tokens onto the board and place the base of one tree somewhere on one of these spots where a tree could grow. We've also got the board over here with the wildlife randomized, 3 face up, and then everybody begins with one of the starting animals and the corresponding token. You also see these pine cone piles out here, and those are going to be used for drafting. So in the game, we're going to be playing over 3 seasons. At the end of every season, there's going to be some scoring. There will be some end game scoring as well. And then whoever has the most points is going to be the winner of the game. So here is how it goes. Let's say we've already got everything seated the way it needs to be. Let's say I am the start player, and I will be right here. So on my turn, and everybody on their own turns, the first thing you may do is you may spend food to attract wildlife. This is a wildlife over here. Everybody begins with 1 food, but you'll be gaining more as the game goes on. And so I could spend food to attract one of these animals over here. They're going to have a cost in the upper right-hand corner there, in this case 4, a symbol that represents them. And then some ability, okay? And these come in 3 flavors. Some that say a written ability, like the starting ones, and they have a token associated which you will place on something if the ability says you do, or flip face down so you know you've done it, okay? They come with end of season scoring. In this case, I get a victory point for every 3 sun symbols I have, okay? And some that are end game scoring, like this river otter, which gives you 2 points at the end of the game. Now here's the thing, there are 3 river otters in that deck. One has end game scoring, one has in-game scoring, and one has text. So you could end up with all 3. And that's one way to score victory points, is by having sets of animals of the same type, in fact. So at the beginning, I may spend food to hire one of these. Right now, I don't have enough. They cost 2, 4, and 4, so I don't have enough. But I could, and then if I did, I would replace it. I can buy as many as I can afford. The next thing, I'm going to draft some cards. So every player has in front of them 3 piles, and you share some of those piles with the other players. So for example, I'm sitting right here. So for me, my 3 piles are pile number 1, pile number 2, pile number 3. But for that player right there, it would be from their point of view, it would be pile number 1, pile number 2, pile number 3 right over there, okay? So the first thing I do is I grab the first one and I look at it. If I like it, I keep it, I put 1 card face down there from the stack of cards, and I am done. And I trigger whatever the card is if it happens to be an immediate ability. In this case, I have a card here with rain. It has 2 symbols for rain, and it lets me know that rain plus sunshine equals 1 victory point. And if I happen to have the most sets of rain plus sunshine, I also get a bonus. Let's say I don't really want that yet. So I put the card face down instead of taking it. I add 1 card to it without looking at it, and I look at the next set, which is this one right here. So I'm going to take a look. This one has 4 rain. That's better. And it has a tree over here. The trees are going to come in 3 different kinds. You're going to get the bottoms of the trees, the trunks. You're going to get sort of an extension in the middle, or the very top, the canopy of the tree. And they will always have the bottom, which is made up of 2 cardboard pieces, and they will always eventually have a top, ideally. But there can be as many middles as you want to, okay? This one happens to be the top of a tree. So I could use it to complete this tree, but it'll be kind of short. It will not be worth very many points. If I want these, I'll take them and I'll replenish this. If not, once again, they go back down. I add a card to it, and I look at my third pile. This is my third pile. At the end of the season, this is a pine cone. It says at the end of the season, for each pine cone, draw 2 seed cards and keep 1. And this over here has a token on it. Is a pile of seed cards that's been set aside. So I could take this one and then replace it with a card. If I don't want this pile either, then I put it down, I add a card, and I just top deck something. Okay? But let's say I'm going to settle for this. So I'll take it. I'll keep this card face down in my tableau in front of me somewhere, and then we add a single card there. Being done, it goes to that player who may spend to gather some wildlife, and then they'll look at their piles. So maybe they look at this one. It is a tree. It's either the bottom, right, the tree trunk, or one of those extensions in the middle, like I was saying. They don't want that yet. It's not enough for them. So they'll put that down, they'll add a card, and they'll look at the middle. Okay? This one happens to have the top of 2 trees. They only have 1 right now. They're going to pass on that too, let's say. And then they come to this one, and maybe they'll like this one. Ooh, yeah, that's good. Okay, so they'll keep that one. And then with this, they will either start a new tree or extend a tree. Okay? And then this card can be discarded. Now, let me talk about the trees for a second. On your player board here, everybody has places for trees and then tokens in between places for trees. Like this one right here is the beginning of a tree, and that's connected to this token, that one, and that one right across these paths. Whenever you complete 2 trees, if at least one of the 2 is tall enough and they section off one of these paths, so say this one and this one, then you get the token in between, and that's a permanent bonus you have for the rest of the game. So I'll always have 1 rain for the rest of the game if I am able to surround that tile with completed trees, one of them being at least tall enough, okay? So that's how that's going to work. You also score points for completing that tree. It's not just for surrounding. You'll get a little something as well. So that player's done. They put a card there. It goes to this player. This player takes a look at the first one. And let's say they're perfectly happy with the first card. This one is a set collection card. If they end up with a single one, it's actually worth -2 points. But if they get 2, they'll have 4 points. And if they have 3 or more, they'll get 8 points. So they'll put that face up in front of them, replace that one. It comes back to me, and we continue going around until the round is over. And at that point, then we are going to score a few different things, okay? We are going to check if any threats have happened, things like wildfire and disease. They will possibly eliminate some of the things we have collected, the wildfire and the disease. We are going to gain points for completing these conditions at the end of a season. If we have any of the animals that give you those, you are going to check who has the tallest tree. And they are going to get a bonus point, or bonus points, I should say, for having the tallest completed tree. The same tree cannot win that same bonus in the future. So we are going to mark that tree, so it's no longer in contention for that. You are going to check for weather. Every set of rain and sun gives you points. You have bonus points for having the most as well. And then you'll score points for plants and mushrooms and so forth. Then we do a cleanup, and we start again. We do it one more time, and then a third round of that. And at the end of all 3 of those, then whoever has the most points is going to be the winner of the game. There's a couple of other things I want to talk about for endgame scoring, and that is making chains of animals. So basically, if I have this animal here, you'll notice they have little symbols at the bottom. And if I am able to also have this one, these 2 happen to match. So I am making there and a connected ecosystem, right? There's some symbiosis there. And so at the end of the game, I'm going to get victory points for the longest chain of cards I can make. As long as the symbols match, then those things will be connected, okay? So that's a little more endgame scoring there that happens, but that is generally the flow of the game. So hopefully that gives you enough to have an idea of how the game operates. Let's go ahead and go back up top.
Okay, so there's a couple things here. Like I said, the first thing is this changes it from Canopy from 2 to 4. And I don't want to keep comparing it to Canopy, but I think for purposes of this review, it actually is necessary, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on.
Yeah.
It's also not a card game any longer. It is, but also there's a 3-dimensional element of the trees,
Yes.
which
And you have a board in front of you.
Yeah, there's the board thing to it. But it still is the Winston draft, the thing you mentioned earlier, which is done in very few board games, honestly. There's a few. There's that Cloud game from Yellow and that Pirate Cloud
The Pirate game. There's a few games that have a Winston draft. It is a cool mechanism, and it's used, like you said, very rarely. And this one takes it and puts a neat twist on it, okay? Like, mechanically, I think this is cool. The idea of having that Winston draft, but then I have access to 3 piles, but then with this neighbor, I'm sharing these 2 piles, and with that neighbor, a different 2 piles. Like, there's one that we're, like, sort of have in between us. The whole thing, and you saw it in the overview, so I won't belabor the point here, is mechanically really intelligent. I like how Tim Eisner, the designer, was able to take something that worked very straightforward in 2 and wrap it around a 4-player game. Having said that, the game is really slow when you play with 4 players. And a little slower when you play with 3, to the point that it almost makes me, anyway, feel like, well, I just kind of want to play this with 2. And at that point, the comparison to Canopy is sort of necessary again.
Yeah, this is a weird one for me because I want to give the game, and I will probably give the game 2 ratings.
Okay.
Because one is in a vacuum. If this was the only game that existed,
Okay.
my rating is higher. But because Canopy exists, a great 2-player game, I would not play this over that ever. And, well, I guess I would maybe, but it's almost the same game, right? Just a
Sure, they're
different
very
game.
similar, yeah.
It's not quite. There's some differences. But then, why does it need to exist? I don't want to play it with 3 or 4 for the same reasons. I found it to be slow, and I think the problem is that in the 2-player game, I find there's a really fun element of, you and I both know that there's fire in that pile.
Right, right.
And we're both, when it goes 3 or 4, you're passing on a pile, and I'm not even sure why.
Right.
I also don't know where all the cards are necessarily, so there might be the disasters, which is a big focus of the game. These negative things happening.
Drought and hunger, what is it? Famine and drought, things like that.
Yeah, and in a 2-player game, they're actually less dangerous in a 3 to 4-player game to you because they may not affect you that much.
Right.
And that threat of that hanging over your head in the 2-player game is what made it really interesting, that back and forth. Also, maybe it's just me, I didn't think the 3D element here with the tree stacking, it's kind of cool, but it's a little fiddly, and I didn't think it was that, I don't think it justified it as dumb as it is. I like the cards making the trees in the first one. That, I thought, looked better.
Yeah, that's fair. And I like the board element. I like if you grow the trees around a token and they're large enough trees, you unlock that token. That's a neat idea. I don't mind that mechanically, but the trees are fiddly. They are a little annoying to deal with. They don't look the best, in my opinion. I don't really like that, like, one tree like this, one tree like this. That just kind of looks a little lame to me. They added another mechanism, which was the chains of animals, which I also thought was not that interesting. It's just another thing to score.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And also,
it's like, this symbol ties into this symbol, ties into this symbol. You have 3 animals linked, 5 points. It's like, it's just, there's not, I get it, ecosystem, yeah, sure, but it's just another thing to score. Now, there are things about this game I like, lest it sounds like we're just, dealing it a raw hand here. There's plenty of things I do like. I like the artwork a lot. It was tremendous the first time. It still is tremendous this time.
Look at that. You can put this on your wall.
It has a fantastic insert right in the box. I love that. It has simple set collection scoring, which still works really well and feels a little bit refined from the first release. I like that. The trees for scoring thing I enjoy. I like that mechanism, okay? And then I really, really like, and this is fantastic, that the animals are now in their own deck of cards, and you can use food, which you're tracking on your player board, to acquire them out of there. In the original game, the animals and the plants and the everything are in the same deck. Here you can buy them from their own deck. That's cool. and it gives you a nice sort of tension point where you see something come up and you're like, ooh, I hope that's still there when it's my turn. I want to buy that animal.
It's cool, but it does add a point of slowness to the game.
It does.
Because now I have that, I'm sitting there going, ooh, I can buy an animal. Well, I want that squirrel, but not that squirrel. I want the other squirrel.
Yeah.
The one that gives the special ability.
Right.
And also then because of the chaining aspect, which like you said isn't that interesting, I'm sitting there going, well, none of these really chain. Do I want one? I don't remember. Is there a way to wipe the cards? I don't think there is.
I don't remember. I think they wipe when you switch seasons.
Yeah. So they're neat, and I agree with Z. The production is pretty cool. Yeah, it's a neat game. I'll just jump into it here at the end. I like the theme. Maybe it's because I live in America, but the rainforest is more exotic to me than the Northwest.
Sure.
So, I mean, they're both cool, but the animals in rainforest, I'm like, whoa, that looks so neat. And I really liked, as dumb as it was in the original game, you get the little animal token and you put it in the tree, and it was in the tree.
Yes.
Visually, that was very satisfying.
Yes.
This one has slightly better mechanisms, but I was looking at the box here, and it says 20 minutes, real small per player. For a 4-player game, this game is not an 80-minute game. I find that to be a real problem. 80 minutes, it doesn't feel like an 80-minute game. At most with 4 players, I want it to be 45 minutes. It's twice as long. I played it with 3, and 3 is not bad. In fact, 3 might be the best way for this one to be played. So
you still get to enjoy that cool mechanism of drafting in a weird way with 3. With 2, it's just like exactly a Winston draft like the original. So, yeah.
Yeah, so to that end, in a vacuum, I'd give this a 7.
Okay.
It's a fine game. I enjoy it. I love the art, the tree building. It has a little bit of tension back and forth. But because Canopy exists, I wouldn't recommend this over that. I gave that one a 7. In that world, which is the real world.
The real world.
It's a 6. Because it's interesting. It's good. I just don't think it's necessary. In my collection, I would have 1.
Yeah.
One of the 2, and it would be Canopy. Because I think it works best as a 2-player game. There are other fun 3- and 4-player games that I can do otherwise.
Yeah.
That being said, if you can't find Canopy, or you're more interested in this theme, or you really want to play with 3 and 4 players, then this is the one for you.
I'm giving it a 7, so there you go. I'm giving it a 7 anyway. I do very much enjoy it. And I share a lot of the thoughts you're saying here, that yes, I wish it had been a little bit more distinct. It had stood on its own more than kind of feeling like a Canopy 1.5. That they decided, hey, we could push this beyond 2 players and change a couple of mechanisms. It feels like Canopy with a couple of modules thrown in.
Okay.
And that's not bad. That's a good idea. I like Canopy. I like this one. But I guess I'm a little let down personally because it looked like a big box follow-up. Bigger. Canopy's very small. A big box follow-up to that. And yet it doesn't come across that way. It didn't really go that far. Still, I like it. I will only pass this game up with 4. I'm happy to play with 2. I'm happy to play with 3. With 4, I'll be like, let's find something a little bit snappier. This is going to outstay its welcome. And it just does. It's very slow. Drafting for 80 minutes is too much. So there you go. For me, though, I dig it. I love the look, the artwork, the setting, the whole thing. So it gets a 7.
All righty, well, there you go. It's Canopy Evergreen. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
And that's a bear.
Wow.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.